What if I told you that a groundhog might actually be wrong about winter? I'm sitting here on February 2nd, 2026, and I just watched the most famous weather forecaster in America make his annual prediction. Punxsutawney Phil saw his shadow, which supposedly means 6 more weeks of winter. But here's the thing. I think Phil might be underselling what's actually coming. I'm looking at weather data that suggests we're not just getting 6 more weeks of winter. We're getting something much more intense, much more dangerous, and frankly, much more interesting from a meteorological standpoint. Right now, as I speak, Florida is experiencing something that meteorologists will be talking about for years. It's literally colder in parts of the Sunshine State than it is in Montana. Let that sink in for a moment. We're talking about freeze warnings covering almost the entire Florida peninsula. Wind chills in the 20s as far south as the Nature Coast. This is the kind of cold that Floridians simply aren't equipped to handle. But Florida isn't alone in this Arctic nightmare. From Chicago down to Raleigh, from Columbia, South Carolina, up the entire East Coast, we're seeing temperatures that belong in January in Minnesota, not February in the Southeast. Here's what makes this situation so fascinating and terrifying at the same time. The atmosphere has essentially gotten stuck. Think of it like a broken record player, where the needle keeps playing the same section over and over again. Except instead of music, we're getting repeated doses of Arctic air streaming down from Canada. These persistent weather patterns, what we call blocked patterns, can lock into place for weeks or even months. And right now, we've got one of the most extreme examples I've ever seen. The jet stream, which normally moves our weather systems along like a conveyor belt, has developed this massive dip over the eastern United States. And that dip is acting like a highway for Arctic air to pour south. Meanwhile, out west, there's this massive ridge of high pressure creating the opposite effect. While we're freezing in the east, places like California and Nevada are seeing temperatures 20 to 25 degrees above normal. It's like the country has been split into 2 different seasons. But here's where this story gets really interesting. Change is coming, and when it arrives, it's going to be dramatic. Before we get to that change, though, we've got to survive what's coming this week. And I need to warn you about a sneaky snow threat that's going to catch a lot of people off guard. It's not going to be a blizzard. It's not going to make national headlines. But it's going to create some serious travel problems for millions of people who aren't expecting it. Starting tomorrow morning, we're going to see a band of snow develop from St. Louis eastward through Kentucky and up toward Chicago. By Tuesday afternoon, this system is going to organize and intensify, creating a corridor of moderate to heavy snow from Louisville through Cincinnati to Charleston, West Virginia. Interstate 64 is going to be a mess during Tuesday's rush hour. And then this snow is going to slide eastward into areas around Washington, Baltimore, and Pittsburgh. This is the kind of system where one county gets 4 inches of snow while the county next door gets a light dusting. It's unpredictable, it's localized, and it's going to surprise people. I can already hear the complaints. Nobody warned us about this one. Everyone was talking about that big storm and we didn't get anything. Now nobody mentioned this system and we got 4 inches. Well, consider this your warning. It's coming. But let's zoom out and look at the bigger picture. Because what's happening to our weather pattern over the next few weeks is going to be remarkable. That Arctic blast I mentioned around February 7th, it could be one for the history books. We're talking about potentially the coldest air of the entire season, pushing temperatures into the sub-zero range as far south as Kentucky and Tennessee. The duration is what's really concerning. This isn't going to be a typical 2-3 day Arctic blast. This persistent pattern could keep temperatures dangerously cold for an extended period. Think about the implications. Heating systems running continuously for weeks. Water pipes freezing in areas that rarely see such conditions. Energy demand skyrocketing across the eastern United States. And remember, tens of thousands of people are still without power from ice storms that hit over 2 weeks ago. They're about to face even harsher conditions. The human cost of this prolonged cold is already staggering. Emergency shelters are overflowing. Hypothermia cases are rising. Energy bills are reaching crisis levels for families already struggling financially. I've been covering severe weather for years, but there's something particularly heartbreaking about winter emergencies. With tornadoes or hurricanes, the danger is immediate and obvious. But with extreme cold like this, the threat builds slowly, day by day, until it becomes life-threatening. Elderly people on fixed incomes are choosing between heating and medication. Families are crowding into single rooms to conserve heat. Homeless populations are facing genuinely life-threatening conditions with shelter systems overwhelmed. The agricultural impacts are mounting as well. Florida's citrus industry is facing potentially catastrophic losses. Livestock across the affected regions are struggling, with farmers working around the clock to keep animals alive in conditions they've never experienced. Supply chains are fracturing under the strain. Trucking companies are having to suspend operations during the worst cold snaps. Freight trains are experiencing delays due to track conditions. Even basic deliveries of heating fuel are being disrupted. But here's where the story takes a dramatic turn. Around mid-February, this locked pattern is finally going to break. And when it does, it's going to break spectacularly. I'm seeing the first signals for what could be significant severe weather as we approach February 14th and beyond. We're talking about a complete flip from winter to spring in a matter of days. This isn't unusual from a climatological standpoint. February and March are notorious for these rapid transitions. But the magnitude of this particular change is what makes it noteworthy. When you have such extreme temperature contrasts, from record cold to spring-like warmth, and you add in a mobile, energetic jet stream, you get the perfect recipe for explosive storm development. The atmospheric dynamics behind this transition are absolutely fascinating. What happens is that the jet stream, which has been locked in this persistent trough ridge pattern, suddenly becomes progressive and mobile again. As it does, it starts transporting Pacific moisture eastward, while also allowing Gulf of Mexico moisture to surge northward. When these two moisture sources collide with the extreme temperature contrasts we've been experiencing, you get conditions that are perfect for severe thunderstorm development. The wind shear, the change in wind speed and direction with altitude, becomes intense during these transitions. That's fuel for rotating thunderstorms, which can produce tornadoes, large hail, and damaging straight-line winds. The potential impact zone stretches from Nashville back to Oklahoma City, down through Texas to the Mexican border. Cities like San Antonio and Austin are right in the sweet spot for what could be significant severe weather activity. What makes this particularly challenging for forecasters is that these pattern breaks can be difficult to time precisely. We know the change is coming, but pinpointing exactly when and where the most significant impacts will occur requires close monitoring. Emergency management officials are facing an unusual situation. After dealing with winter weather emergencies for weeks, they now need to start preparing for potential severe weather season. It's a transition that highlights just how extreme this weather pattern has been. Now, I want to be clear. This is still a long-range forecast. A lot can change between now and then. But it's the first signal we've seen for spring-like weather patterns in quite some time. The Climate Prediction Center's extended outlook shows this pattern shift clearly. While the East Coast continues to face below-normal temperatures through mid-February, areas from Houston to Dallas, Oklahoma City to Bismarck, are expected to see above-normal temperatures. For people who have been dealing with weeks of brutal cold, this warm-up is going to be welcomed, even if it comes with the risk of severe weather. This rapid transition from extreme winter to potential severe weather is something that happens in meteorology textbooks, but actually experiencing it is something else entirely. It's like watching the atmosphere shift gears in fast forward. The contrast is going to be stark. One week you might be dealing with life-threatening cold and snow removal, and the next week you could be monitoring tornado watches and severe thunderstorm warnings. This is the kind of weather pattern that defines entire seasons. The winter of 2026 will be remembered for its extremes. The historic cold in Florida, the persistent ice and snow across the southeast, and potentially, the dramatic spring awakening that's coming. The human stories from this winter are already remarkable. Families in traditionally warm climates dealing with conditions they've never experienced. Emergency shelters overwhelmed. Utility crews working around the clock in dangerous conditions. And soon, we might be shifting from winter weather warnings to severe weather watches. From heating concerns to tornado preparedness. It's a reminder of just how dynamic and powerful our atmosphere can be. The economic implications of this pattern shift are enormous as well. Energy companies that have been dealing with unprecedented demand for heating will suddenly need to prepare for severe weather threats to their infrastructure. Agriculture faces a double challenge. Crops and livestock that have survived the brutal cold will then need to adapt to rapid warming and potentially severe weather. Tourism and recreation industries that have been devastated by the extended winter could see rapid changes. But they'll also need to prepare for potential storm-related disruptions. The psychological impact on people shouldn't be underestimated either. After weeks of dealing with harsh winter conditions, the mental adjustment to spring weather patterns and severe weather threats is significant. The Groundhog saw his shadow today, predicting 6 more weeks of winter. But I think what's coming is going to be far more complex and dramatic than any rodent could predict. We're about to witness one of the most significant weather pattern changes in recent memory. From locked winter patterns to explosive spring dynamics, all compressed into a few short weeks. For those still dealing with the harsh cold, hang in there. Change is coming. For those who might face severe weather down the road, start thinking about your preparedness plans now. This winter has been extraordinary, and its ending is going to be equally memorable. The story we're watching unfold is one that meteorologists will study for years to come, and one that millions of Americans will never forget. Stay safe, stay prepared, and keep watching the sky. Mother Nature isn't done with us yet, and the next chapter of this weather story might be the most dramatic one yet.